All right, so let's talk about how do we get a union? Let's say we decide to form a union because we want a $5 raise. We want our starting rate at Amazon to be $25 an hour, $25.50 an hour. And we recognize that our way of getting that is to come together as a union and force Amazon to give it to us. What is the process of getting from here to getting Amazon to deliver on that $25 an hour?
Get down on that bargaining table.
The first step is we have to prove to Amazon and the government and the Teamsters even, we have to prove that the majority of the workplace want to be in that union. That's step number one. We have to show majority support. Step number two, we have to get Amazon to sign a contract with all of the things we want in it. So let's say we're talking about a $25 raise. We're talking about better safety conditions, better healthcare, better benefits, more UPT, more paid time off, whatever it is that we're talking about, whatever it is we want to fight for. We put that down in writing and we get Amazon to sign it. That's called the contract. That is step two. There's a lot that goes into that. So let's talk about each of those. So they're two different things because you're going to hear Amazon talking a lot about contracts. You might not get a contract, you might, whatever. So let's just be very clear about what these terms are. Step number one is we have to win union recognition. Step number two is we fight for and win a contract. So step one is we have to show the government and Amazon and the unions that a majority of us want to be union members. We want to be Teamsters. How do we do that?
Well, you have most likely seen either me, Ira, or Dylan, or maybe even one of your friends have told you about one of these cards that have been going around. And especially now that Amazon has done the job of revealing the whole thing, it is something that allows the Teamsters to negotiate a contract with Amazon. After we get a majority of the warehouse on those cards, we can officially be recognized as Teamsters by the government. And then comes the battle for the contract.
Yeah, so let's back up a little bit. The legal process, if our goal is to get the government to issue a bargaining order to Amazon to sit down at the table, recognize us as a union, and bargain our conditions, we want a bargaining order from the government. To get that, to get the government to issue that bargaining order, we have to show that a majority of the warehouse wants the union and authorizes the union to bargain with Amazon. So you can do that where we get a majority of us on cards. We send those cards to the government. They give us the bargaining order, and we go tell Amazon the majority of us signed Teamster cards. We want you to bargain with us. If Amazon says yes, they are legally locked into that relationship with us as the union. You can also run a union vote, an election, where if you have an adequate showing of interest, if a significant number of people in the warehouse say, we want to have a union vote, the government, the NLRB, will come in and hold a vote. And if the majority of people in the warehouse who vote yes, we want the union, now Amazon doesn't have a choice. They can't say yes or no. What we are doing with these cards is we are going for voluntary recognition. We should be prepared for Amazon to say no. They're going to say no.
They're
They're not,
probably going to say no. Yeah,
yeah, they're
they'll
going to
drag
say,
it out.
yeah, they're going to say no. So that means we have to be prepared when they say no to win that election. Every single person who signed a card, and we want the majority, the vast majority on cards, has to also be willing to vote yes in that vote, to vote yes in that election. I want a union. That now puts Amazon in a position where the government definitely will issue a bargaining order and say, you have to sit down and bargain with the union.
With every blunder that Amazon makes recently, with trying to go against us from being recognized as Teamsters, it's just not really working so far from what I've heard from everyone that I've talked to about it. And Amazon has really pumped up their defenses because recognition as the Teamsters means they're losing their flagship DS to the Teamsters, to a union. And it's a heavy, heavy blow. And they really don't want that. And so from now until obviously I'm preparing for the vote myself. Till we get to that vote, Amazon will fight the biggest campaign of misinformation that they can. And we need to prepare for that.
Yeah, they're not just trying to convince you not to take out cars by scaring you away from the Teamsters. When it comes to the vote, they're going to go into even higher gear, and everything you think they're saying now, they're going to double down on that. So our task is to prepare for it. All right, let's say we all took out cards. We get a majority of the warehouse on cards. We go to Amazon and say we have the majority of the warehouse on cards, recognize us as the Teamsters, and they say no way. So then boom, majority of the warehouse votes for the union. Now the government's like, the warehouse wants the union. Amazon, you've got to sit down and bargain. You got to sit down and bargain with that union. Amazon might try to challenge it in court. They might try to get us to drag their heels, but ultimately we get them to the table. They've got to sit down and bargain with us. They're finally sitting down at the table. So that's the recognition question. We've resolved the recognition question. What do we have to do now? What's the next thing? So that's step one, recognition. What's step two?
Cut real quick. Could we, in theory, strike to make them come to the bargaining table?
Absolutely. Don't even say in theory, because it's very possible that even with a bargaining order, they'll be like sort of drag their heels and issue all kinds of legal challenges. We still retain our right to strike. We still retain our right to do walkouts. And so we can strike over any unfair labor practice they commit. We don't have to stop fighting the company. But if they don't come to the table, then that itself is an unfair labor practice. If they refuse the bargaining order, that itself is called an unfair labor practice, a ULP, and we can strike them over that. We can strike them over that ULP, and the only way they can resolve that ULP is to come to the table.
Well, shit, there's a good ass reason. Now, even if they do drag their heels, well, let's just strike. They'll definitely feel it in their pockets, I tell you that.
Yeah, and let's actually talk. What does getting this recognition immediately get us? It still hasn't gotten. Does it get us a raise?
No, not yet.
What this bargaining order gets us is now Amazon is legally obligated to bargain over any major changes they're making in our working conditions, our pay, our benefits, anything like that. So that lie that Amazon tells you, where if you win the union, you might lose some of your benefits because we can't afford X, Y, and Z. That's bullshit, because once you win the union, any changes to your benefits that they make, any changes, any major changes to your working conditions, any changes taking stuff away, they would actually have to bargain that with you. Are you going to sign a contract? Are you going to sign something that says, yes, take away my benefits? Of course not. So now that brings us to the next stage. If we want to put in writing and get Amazon to sign it and give it the force of law, what it is we want to see changed, we now have to fight for a contract. They've been ordered to sit down at the table and negotiate a contract with us. And what is a contract?
That is the final culmination of all our demands, what we want from the company. That is from a raise to safer staffing to just human decency from our managers. It's all everything that you can demand on that contract, and something that finally legally binds Amazon into respecting that. It is a legally binding contract that keeps them in that place.
It's like you said. Let's say we decided amongst ourselves that we want to fight for that $5 an hour raise for starting wage of $25 an hour. Let's say if managers are micromanaging us, we don't want them to be able to do that anymore. We want to be able to write them up. If they micromanage us like that, if they harass us like that, then the company has to pay us extra. So we might want something like that to combat harassment.
Then we
Um,
have a bounty board.
bounty
Is
board.
that in the contract? Can we have a bounty board of just the worst managers? Can we legally put that up?
You mean how much? Okay, so let's say we want to have a grievance procedure to write up managers who are harassing us. And let's say
And show their faces and humiliate them.
and let's say yeah, let's say that in addition to charging the company for every grievance, for every instance of a manager harassing us, whatever worker was harassed, they file a grievance, and now Amazon has to pay that worker $50, something like that. Are you asking if there's anything to prevent us from putting up like a scoreboard of how much
Yes, a
money
scoreboard.
each manager has cost the company in grievance
Yes, yes,
payouts?
a
Uh,
bounty board.
we unless we explicitly agree that we're not going to do that in the contract, then we still retain the right to do that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah, man.
So Amazon might say, yeah, we'll give you that grievance process to get payouts if managers are harassing you, but in exchange, you have to promise not to publicize that, right? They might say that. And is that something we agree to? Okay, well, it's up to us. So yeah, we sit down, we put $25 pay raise, a grievance process. Another thing that's important to people is job security. Management can't just fire you for no reason. They have to have a reason to fire you, and they have to go through a process with the union. And the reason has to be a good reason, right? That might be something we want, job security. And let's say we want more
We get to
people.
decide what good reason means as well, correct?
Yeah, that would be negotiated with the company. What are the reasons you can fire someone? What are the reasons you can discipline someone? That's the type of stuff that we would want to sit down and negotiate with them in the contract. So, all right, we're putting all of this in writing. And let's say we put all of these things in the contract. Do you think Amazon's going to want to sign that contract?
Hell no.
Hell no, they're not going to want to give that force a law. And the bottom line is winning the union, it didn't tell them they have to sign a contract with us. It just tells them they have to sit down and bargain with us. And if we're putting things that they're like, that's too much, they're not under legal obligation to sign it. So now this comes back to that question of what power do we have to force them to sign a contract they don't want to sign?
The strike.
Exactly. Now we come back to where our real power as workers is. The more we're down to like fight through strike action for those things in that contract, the more willing we are to do that, the better contract we're going to be able to win.
The more united we are.
Yep. And just remember, the union can't just unilaterally call a strike. It has to be authorized and voted on by the membership. So it might be that we put all those things in a contract, in a tentative agreement with the company, and Amazon's like, we're not going to give you a $25 base pay. We'll give you a $1 raise, not a $5 raise. We're going to give you a $1 raise. What do we have to do now?
Fight.
Well, we take it to the membership and we're like, okay, they offered $1 raise. They said they're not going to move on the $5, but they offered us $1. Should we approve that? Should we accept it? And we take a
I
vote.
hope most of us doesn't accept it.
Yeah, exactly. The membership is going to be like, hell no, we're asking for a $5 raise, not a $1 raise. So they're going to vote it down. They're going to vote no, we're not going to accept that contract. So now we might be like, okay, so we need to go back to the table with some leverage. We're going to tell them it's a no vote. We're not going to accept it, but we want to come back with some leverage. So what are we going to do then? What are we going to do to come back to the table and force Amazon to move more on that?
You come up, you put down your demands again, and you say, yeah, okay, if this time you don't respect our contract and don't give us some bullshit compromise, yeah, we're all just gonna stop working. You're not gonna make any money for weeks until you give in, and we'll see who can wait longer.
Well, what are we going to have to do before we can do that?
Of course, this is all a very democratic process, and I hope we're all democratically aligned on this that we should strike, but it does come down to a vote by the membership. I just really hope we're all united in fucking Amazon over.
I think we're united in getting the most we can from Amazon. So it's actually, we're not voting to strike. We're voting to authorize a strike. We're voting to authorize the union to call a strike. So we take that offer for a $1 raise back to the membership. They vote it down. They say no. And then we're like, okay, can we authorize a strike? Who is down and willing to go on strike if Amazon doesn't meet our demand for $25 an hour? And then we take a vote, and let's say 90% vote yes. We got 90% saying, yep, let's strike if they don't give us $25 an hour. So now we go back to Amazon and we're like, okay, we voted down this agreement. We're not going to sign this contract. And if you don't move on the $25 an hour, if you don't give us that, all the workers in this unit voted to go on strike or voted to authorize the union to call a strike. Now what's Amazon going to say?
Hopefully they're shivering their timbers and say, "Oh no, I guess we'll give in." But the pessimist in me says they will probably not, and they're gonna try and fight it, and then we'll finally have to go on strike.
What if we have only unionized at DBK4 at our one warehouse? What if it's only 600 drivers and the 300 warehouse workers voting to go on strike if they don't give us that?
Well, Amazon is an empire. Losing one warehouse, even if it is the flagship station, wouldn't be enough for them to change everything over. Just because one station in New York walks out doesn't mean our fellow Amazon workers in I don't know, bumfuck Wyoming or something, they're also gonna get $25.
Right. So if we're only organized and unionized in that one site, they might still say, you're still asking too much. We have these other warehouses in the area that can fulfill these orders, that can do these shipments. So they're going to go ship them out of, DIN 3.
Din 3.
Yeah, other warehouses. But let's say, we anticipated this. So we've also gone out and unionized 5 other warehouses in New York City, or 6 other warehouses in New York City. And, we joined the Teamsters because the 6,000 workers at JFK8 are already in the Teamsters as well. So let's say we're up to, 10 or 12,000 Amazon workers in New York that are in the union now. And so we're not just going to the table and saying 800 workers or 1,000 workers between the warehouse and the drivers at DBK4 have authorized a strike if you don't give us this raise. But actually 12,000 workers in New York City at the majority of your warehouses and JFK8 have all voted to authorize a strike if you don't sign this contract.
Yes,
Now,
sir. Now it's no longer just Queens not getting delivered to, it's the entirety of New York City. And if you're a New Yorker, which you probably are, you'll see that that's a huge market that they're losing out on. That's not just a little hole. Only so much Amazon can do at that point. If it's something that's attacking them from throughout its empire, which it will, with union activity being so prevalent across the states right now.
let's say that we were making that threat, but we were not part of an existing union. Let's say we decided to start our own union from scratch, brand new union. We're going out and we get to the table. We say, if you don't sign the contract, we're going on strike. What are they going to say to us? If they look at us as this upstart union that doesn't really have resources, they're going to be like, okay, well, when you get hungry, you can come back to work and earn some money. When your rent's due, you can come back to work and earn some money. And they'll just wait us out, right? Because they're not going to be paying us while we're on strike. The benefit of joining a big existing union that's been around for a long time, like Teamsters, that's 1.4 million other workers and millions more than that over the last century that have been building up their union to support each other while they're on strike. So now Amazon's going to look at our $350 million strike fund and they're going to be like, oh shit, you've got 15,000 workers who have authorized a strike, and you've got a pretty hefty, well-resourced union to support itself, to support those workers while it's on strike. Well, shit, now let's go up to 2450. How's that?
Still no. Give me my $25, God damn it.
Right. But you see how the contract negotiation is going to work, and how our power to strike and our ability to strike is really our entire leverage in that process.
It is our greatest worker power.
The strike power to get them to sign a really life-changing contract is going to come at being organized into the union at many sites, many sites. So I would say, we've got our work cut out for us, but the first step is showing majority support for the union and DBK4, getting people onto those union cards and ready to win that election. The next step after that is to get more warehouses into the union so that we can win a life-changing contract.
It's already being fought.
Yep, exactly. So for now, thank you for joining. Again, I am your coworker, Ira.
And it's your coworker, Alvin. Good night and good day.